I thought I knew everything about love and money until I became a billionaire's wife. What I discovered changed everything I believed about both. This is how one black woman showed the world's richest man what real love actually means. And it almost destroyed us both. If you've ever wondered whether true love can exist in a world of endless wealth and power, stay with me. By the end of this story, you'll understand why some of the most important lessons about love come from the most unexpected places. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that will change how you see the world. You know, I never thought I'd be telling this story, but sometimes life puts you in the front row of something so extraordinary that you just have to share it. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I witnessed. I was working as an event coordinator for high-end parties, the kind where champagne costs more than most people's rent. That's how I got to see their world up close. And trust me, it's nothing like what you see in movies. Let me tell you about someone I'll call the billionaire. Picture a man who could buy entire cities if he wanted to. Private jets, multiple mansions, a yacht that looked like a floating palace. He lived in a bubble where everything and everyone had a price tag. I watched him move through rooms full of people who hung on his every word, not because he was particularly charming, but because his bank account had more zeros than most calculators could handle. But here's what really got to me: watching how he treated relationships. I saw him cycle through women like they were seasonal accessories, beautiful models, actresses, socialites, each one more stunning than the last. He'd shower them with diamonds, take them on exotic trips, introduce them at fancy galas. From the outside, it looked like a fairy tale. But I saw the emptiness in their eyes, and the distance in his. These weren't relationships, they were transactions. He was collecting these women like rare paintings, admiring them from a distance, but never really connecting with what made them real. The crazy part, he had everything anyone could ever want, but I could see he was hollow inside. During quiet moments at these events, when he thought no one was looking, I'd catch glimpses of something lost in his expression, like he was searching for something but didn't even know what it was. All that money, all that power, and he seemed like the loneliest person in the room. He was surrounded by people, but no one really knew him. How could they? He'd never let anyone close enough to see past the facade. Then everything changed when Amara walked into his life. I remember the first time I heard him mention her name. There was something different in his voice. Amara wasn't part of his usual world. She was a social worker from the South Side, working with kids who'd never seen wealth like his. She was beautiful, yes, but in a way that came from within. She had this confidence that didn't need designer clothes or expensive jewelry to shine through. She was real in a world full of people playing roles. What fascinated me wasn't just that she was different, it was how she made him different. For the first time in all the years I'd watched him, I saw someone treat him like he was just another human being. Not a walking ATM, not a stepping stone to fame, not a trophy to be won. Just a man. And maybe that's exactly what he needed to finally understand what love actually was. This is their story. A story about how one woman's authenticity shattered a billionaire's illusions and showed him what genuine love could look like. It wasn't easy and it definitely wasn't perfect. But it was real. And sometimes, that's the most revolutionary thing of all. You know what's funny? Their first meeting wasn't at some charity gala or exclusive club like you'd expect. It was at a small coffee shop in her neighborhood, and he was there by complete accident. His driver had taken a wrong turn while avoiding traffic, and his phone had died. He walked in, looking completely out of place in his $1,000 suit, asking to use their phone like some lost teenager. Amara was there, with a group of kids from her program, and I swear she barely glanced up when he walked in. Most people would have recognized him instantly, started whispering, maybe asked for a photo. Not her. She just kept helping this little boy with his homework, completely unfazed. When he approached her table to ask about the phone, she pointed to the counter without looking up and said, "They've got one behind the register." That's it. No special treatment, no breathless excitement. He stood there for a moment like he was waiting for something more. Recognition, maybe a smile, definitely some kind of acknowledgement. But she just went back to explaining fractions. I think that was the exact moment his world tilted off its axis. Later, he told me he'd never experienced anything like it. Here was this beautiful, intelligent woman who treated him like he was completely ordinary. Not invisible, not rude, just normal. She didn't care about his money because she didn't even know who he was. When he finally got his phone charging and sat at a nearby table, he found himself watching her interact with those kids. The way she listened to them, really listened, like what they had to say mattered more than anything else in the world. He left that coffee shop confused and somehow hungry for something he couldn't name. For days afterward, he kept finding excuses to drive through that neighborhood, hoping to catch another glimpse of the woman who'd made him feel completely invisible and utterly alive at the same time. What happened next was honestly kind of painful to watch. This man who could buy companies on a whim suddenly didn't know how to talk to one woman. He started showing up at that coffee shop regularly, always with his phone mysteriously dead or some other excuse. The first few times, he tried his usual approach, expensive gestures, designer gifts left anonymously. He sent her flowers that probably cost more than her monthly salary. Her reaction? She gave them to the kids' families because she thought someone had delivered them to the wrong address. When he finally worked up the courage to tell her they were from him, she thanked him politely and asked him to please not waste his money. She actually said, "waste his money," to a billionaire. I watched him fumble through conversations with her, trying to impress her with stories about his travels, his business deals, his connections. She'd nod politely, then redirect the conversation to ask about the kids she worked with or share stories about her community. He'd mention his yacht, and she'd talk about taking the children to the public pool. He'd name-drop celebrities, and she'd tell him about her favorite teacher from high school. The breakthrough came when he stopped trying to impress her and started actually listening. She mentioned needing supplies for her after-school program, and instead of writing a check, he asked if he could help organize a donation drive. Not from his foundation or his company, just him, personally, going door to door in his own neighborhood, asking for basic school supplies. I think that's when she finally saw him, not the billionaire, not the bachelor everyone wanted to marry, but just a man trying to do something good for reasons that had nothing to do with business or publicity. And slowly, very slowly, she started letting him into her world. But of course, nothing that real comes without a fight. Once word got out about their relationship, it was like watching a storm hit. His social circle couldn't understand what he was doing. I overheard conversations at parties where people whispered things like, "What's he thinking?" and "She's obviously after his money." The irony was thick. These were the same people who'd spent years chasing his wealth, now criticizing someone who couldn't care less about it. The media was worse. Suddenly, every tabloid had theories about the gold digger who'd trapped one of the world's richest men. They dug into her background, questioned her education, criticized her clothes at public events. I watched her handle it with more grace than I thought possible, but I could see how much it hurt her. She wasn't used to this kind of scrutiny, this constant judgment of every word and gesture. His family tried staging interventions. Business associates suggested he was having a midlife crisis. Old girlfriends suddenly reappeared, conveniently showing up at the same restaurants and events. The pressure was enormous, and I could see it wearing on him. He started second-guessing himself, wondering if maybe everyone was right. What if this was just some phase? What if he wasn't enough for her without all the money and status? But the hardest part was watching him struggle with his own insecurities. This man who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions without blinking suddenly felt inadequate. He'd grown up believing his worth was tied to his wealth, and now he was terrified that without those zeros in his bank account, he was nothing. the woman who made him feel most like himself, also made him question everything he thought he knew about who he was. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday evening. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I'd left my keys at the community center where Amara worked. When I walked in, I found them in the middle of what looked like their first real fight. He was pacing, throwing around words like practical and realistic, saying maybe everyone was right about them being from different worlds. She just stood there, calm as ever, and then she said something that stopped him cold. "You know what's sad? You've spent so much time being rich that you forgot how to be human." The silence that followed was deafening. I should have left, but I couldn't move. That's when something inside him finally broke open. For the first time since I'd known him, he stopped performing. The walls came down. He told her about the loneliness that money couldn't fix, about how every relationship in his life felt like a transaction, about how terrified he was that she'd leave once she realized there wasn't much to him beyond the bank account. "And you know what she did?" She laughed. Not mockingly, but with this warmth that filled the whole room. She told him she'd been waiting months for him to show up as himself instead of his net worth. She shared her own fears too, about being judged, about not fitting into his world, about whether love could really bridge such different lives. That night changed everything. He started seeing himself through her eyes, not as a walking dollar sign, but as someone capable of kindness, growth, and genuine connection. She helped him understand that his value had nothing to do with what he owned and everything to do with who he chose to be. For the first time in his life, he felt truly known by someone, and it was terrifying and beautiful all at once. The change wasn't instant, but it was real. I watched him transform from someone who used money to solve problems into someone who actually showed up for the people he cared about. He started spending less time at corporate events and more time at Amara's community center, not writing checks or making grand gestures, but sitting on the floor, helping kids with homework, listening to their stories, learning their names. His wealth didn't disappear. That would be unrealistic. But how he used it changed completely. Instead of buying his way into Amara's world, he let her guide him toward causes that actually mattered. They started funding programs that she believed in, but he was hands-on in ways that surprised everyone, including himself. He discovered he was good with kids, patient with people, and capable of finding joy in simple moments. The doubters slowly went quiet, not because they suddenly approved, but because the evidence was undeniable. This wasn't a phase or a publicity stunt. He'd found something that money couldn't buy, authentic love that challenged him to become a better person every single day. Years later, I still see them together at community events. He's different now, looser, happier, more genuine. She grounds him in ways that matter, and he supports her dreams without trying to control them. They built something beautiful together, not because money bought it, but because two people chose to see and love each other for who they really were. The lesson here isn't that money doesn't matter, it's that it can't be the foundation of love. Real love requires showing up as yourself, being vulnerable, and choosing someone's heart over their status. Amara didn't just change one man's life, she showed all of us what authentic love looks like. And in a world full of transactions, that's pretty revolutionary. Love isn't about what you can buy or what you can give materially. Sometimes the richest person in the room is the one who can offer genuine connection and authenticity. If this story touched you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. What do you think makes love real? Tell me in the comments below. Until next time, remember, the most valuable things in life can't be purchased.